Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. In this podcast, we'll be having discussions around the secrets which attract lasting, healthy, fulfilling relationships, creating a healthy mindset, and what women should know and understand about men. Introducing your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts, relationship expert, trainer, speaker, and best-selling author of the Cupid's Bow technique. Lyn's mission is to have a positive impact in reducing divorce, domestic violence, and suicide.
Welcome to the HEARTS Entwined podcast. This is your host, Lyn Smith, the Queen of Hearts. And today, listeners, I'm going to be talking about a hot topic which has been one of my areas of expertise and which keeps on being something that I think more women are tuning into and wanting to know more information about. And that is, how can I connect to my feminine energy? And now that's a really good question, because the masculine and feminine energy dynamic really plays a huge part in our relationships, and some women have been conditioned, over time to be more in their masculine energy. So what do I mean by masculine energy? Well, they're in a more doing and action type energy rather than a feeling, being, an intuitive type energy. So the masculine energy is almost always about doing, being proactive, being compartmentalized, get the word out. And the feminine energy is more about just being, flowing, being intuitive, and just generally be a bit, I suppose, in some respects, a lot more scattered in their approach to how and when they do things, rather than a bit more rigid and fixed. So that's one area. Another area is, what do I mean about connecting to feminine energy? Well, connecting to feminine energy is the possibility within all of us, regardless of whether you're male or female. We all have masculine and feminine energy. And usually, if you're a heterosexual woman, your natural core energy is usually the dominant feminine energy. So if that's the case, the way that works in our favour in the context of relationships is, the more that we can connect to our feminine energy and know more about feminine energy, the more likely it is we're going to attract the type of man that we really want. And that's a healthy masculine energy man. And so usually what happens is we get, I suppose, caught up in our own past traumas and quite often default automatically, without even being consciously aware of what's happening, into masculine energy as a means to protect ourselves. If we've had trauma and past heartbreaks, it's quite common for women to default into masculine energy as a protection, default energy to protect themselves. But all that does usually is put off men who are naturally in their healthy masculine energy from approaching those women, because they come across as quite aggressive, and they can be quite controlling in the way that they do things, more, as I say, autonomous, as masculine energy normally is. And for a man, they might not even realise this, if they've not done any training around it, but that can feel to them like another male energy challenging them. So they're not attracted to that. So how do we get around that? Well, one of the main ways is to become more aware of how we're behaving, what we're saying, and instead of getting in our heads, get into our hearts. As I said, feminine energy is more about being more intuitive. So it's more about feeling rather than, as I said earlier, any sort of active mental process of doing. The other thing is that I think it's quite common for women to know, or not know, I should say, is that they quite often want to be in control after being in past relationships where they felt out of control, or if they felt out of control on the back of any trauma. So be aware that if you've not done the work on yourself, if you've not delved into coaching, therapy, or self-help, then you might need to delve into doing some of that to actually heal from that, so that you don't feel the need to be in control. Because the feminine energy is all about relinquishing control, and I'm not saying that if you're if you're in an abusive relationship you need to do that. No, obviously not. But if you're in a healthy relationship, or you want to attract a healthy relationship, then we do need to learn to relinquish control if we're with a safe man who just wants to protect us in a healthy way. So be aware that, naturally we do default into masculine energy sometimes, and that could be, necessary in a work environment. So I'm not saying you never need to be in masculine energy. Sometimes it can be necessary if you're in a work environment. It can be also necessary if you're in a competitive environment, in sports or anything like that. We do need to be in masculine energy to compete at our best in sports. And also, as I say, if we're in a fearful situation, then that's a time when, we automatically default into masculine energy. This all happens unconsciously. So be aware that, if you don't know this stuff, then it's not your fault. At the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know until we do. So this is me just trying to do my best to educate women that it's okay if you realise that you have been stuck in masculine energy and you're not attracting necessarily the right sort of guy in terms of a relationship, or your relationship isn't quite where you want it to be. If you're currently in a relationship, it's not necessarily a toxic relationship, but it might just feel as though it's a bit unfulfilling. And it might be because you're the one that, is taking on that masculine role and wearing the trousers in that relationship, which can be a bit of a passion killer, because quite likely either the guy you're with will either do one of two things. He'll either step more into his feminine energy, which is not attractive to you, or he'll step more into his masculine energy because he feels there's another masculine energy challenging him in that relationship. And you can end up having a series of conflicts and not really know why or how that's necessarily arisen. So just some food for thought there. And just think about and become more conscious of the way you're showing up yourself in relationships. Another tip is, if you are somebody that wants to practice being more feminine and to get to grips with feeling more feminine, then that can show up in various different ways. Being feminine isn't always about, having the nail polish, the makeup, the hair, the false eyelashes or whatever. It's whatever makes you feel feminine. For me, I don't wear any makeup. For me, I don't wear high heels. I do wear perfume. I do like to wear flowers in my hair. I do like to wear floaty, sort of gypsy style, hippie type skirts and dresses. And pretty underwear makes me feel feminine. So it's whatever makes you feel feminine. Don't fall into thinking you have to compare yourself to any sort of celebrity stereotype or even a family member in terms of thinking that, oh, she exudes feminine energy and therefore I need to copy her, because what feels right to her and what makes her feel more feminine or look more feminine isn't necessarily going to be the right fit for yourself. So again, consciously be more present and aware of what actually makes you as an individual. Tune into what is your authentic way of feeling more girly, more feminine in the way you present yourself as well. Okay, I hope those have been useful tips, and I'm not going to overload the conversation with any more than that, because I think that's more than enough to start with. There's loads of things that I could add to this, but I'll do that on future episodes, and I've also covered some other things in previous episodes as well about feminine energy, because it can feel overwhelming to be bombarded with too much information. So look at previous episodes if you want to find out more. But as a starting point, I think you've got more than enough there in terms of information to get you started. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. And I just want to end the episode with saying true love starts with opening our hearts. And until next time, goodbye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Hearts Entwined podcast. You can follow Lyn via the Facebook group 2 Hearts Entwined, or search Lyn Smith, inspirational speaker, at LinkedIn, or email lyn@hearts-entwined.com. That's LYN@hearts-entwined.com. Remember, true love starts with opening our hearts.
This episode was brought to you by Disruptive Media, helping bold entrepreneurs stand out through podcasting, video, and social content. Visit disruptivemedia.co.uk to learn more.